Adrian Brody's character, Laszlo Toth, is a highly unusual form of character in a screenplay. In most modern screenplays, all of the action, or at least most of it, is driven by the choices that the main character makes. Like a traditional hero in a Campbellian hero's journey, they say, "This is my great dream." And maybe they go through a moment of refusing the call, and then they're like, "Yes, I'm going to do it." And they force their way through that journey, leading themselves and the people they care about to the promised land of change, right? That is how a traditional structure is built in most of today's movies. And that is exactly the opposite of what the Brutalist is doing. So in this episode, part 2 of my Brutalist podcast series, we're going to be talking about why. We're going to be talking about how Brady Corbet made that work. I'm Jacob Kruger, and this is the Write Your Screenplay podcast. This episode is brought to you by ProTrack. ProTrack is our one-on-one mentorship program that pairs you with a working professional writer. And I'm talking about top award-winning working professional writers, the people you admire and respect. That person is going to meet with you every week or every other week. They're going to read every page you write, every draft you complete. They're going to mentor you through your entire career as a screenwriter, and they're going to do it for the tiniest fraction of what you would pay for grad school. If you want to learn more about this or about any of our other programs, you can go to writeyourscreenplay.com/ProTrack. Okay. We are all supposed to know that passive main characters are wrong. That's what every screenwriting book will tell you. That is what every coverage reader will tell you. That is what nearly every screenwriting seminar will tell you. So how does The Brutalist pull off a 3.5-hour movie that's built around a character who is primarily passive? Not only is the character primarily passive, and what I mean when I say passive is Laszlo Toth, the Adrian Brody character. Most of the script does not happen by him. It happens to him. For example, Laszlo Toth comes over from Hungary on a boat, right? He's hustled off the boat. In a traditional narrative structure, he would fight to find a person to take him in. In this narrative structure, he is taken in by his family, a Jew who is blending in society. He's married a Catholic woman. He's changed his name to Miller, trying to fit in with his struggling business. He doesn't have to fight to earn that place. That's just done for him. And a job is created for him. A place to stay is created for him. And he doesn't fight against that job, right? He doesn't go, "No, this is below me." He's happy to work there. He's happy to have a place to live. Now, sure, he has challenges, right? He's very poor. His wife is stuck in Europe. His niece is not even speaking. She's not able to speak whatever horror happened to her. And the only connection he has to his family is through whatever note can be sent back and forth, months passing in between communication, right? So it's a very, very challenging situation. But he's not driving the action. Rather, he's been taken care of. He's being taken care of as an immigrant in a way that we could only wish we took care of immigrants today, right? There's actually somebody there for him. There's actually a process to bring him in. He's a refugee. Now, we never see Laszlo at the concentration camps, but we know that he's been through the concentration camps, and we know right away that he is bearing the scars of that. We know that he has something complicated going on, right? That he can't seem to make love to a woman. The first woman he has a chance to make love to is a sex worker. And we see that he wants to perform, at least for his friend, to be accepted, or for her, right? That he's there, but we see that he can't, right? And later we're going to understand more about why and how this is not just about his loyalty or devotion to his wife, because later we're going to find out that he can't make love to his wife either, even when she returns, right? That he's really struggling. So we have some dramatization of his struggles, but we don't have the traditional structure of, I want this, I'm going to go get this, that we talk about in almost every screenplay. Even his big break doesn't happen by him, it happens to him. He's staying with his cousin and his cousin's wife. His cousin gets a job working for an industrialist, capitalist millionaire named Harrison Lee Van Buren Sr., right? So Van Buren is a wealthy capitalist. His son, Harry, wants to surprise him by redoing his crappy library, right? So again, this doesn't happen by Laszlo. He doesn't go out to find the commission. It happens to him, not the way we expect. And the only real choice that he makes is to do an extraordinary job, but he doesn't do it under the kind of pressure that we're used to, right? He just does it. He's not fighting against Harry's plans. He just does way more than Harry would ever have expected. Now, we're going to talk more about how this plays out and how they make it work, but I just want to continue to show you the extent of this. When things go wrong after that, Van Buren Sr. shows up. He doesn't like surprises, it turns out, and the cousin isn't getting paid. They decide that it is Laszlo's fault. They kick him out, and even a lie is told about him by Attila's wife. She lies that he made a pass at her. And again, this is not traditional format, right? This is not happening by him. It's happening to him. He did a great job. He's being punished unfairly. He doesn't even defend himself. He doesn't even try to convince his cousin that he didn't make a pass, even though we know that he didn't, that she just wants him out, right? So we don't see him fight. And then, again, not by him, to him, he ends up with a job working on bridges, constructing coal. He builds a friendship with the guy who's going to end up becoming his right-hand man. His great break doesn't happen by him. He doesn't fight his way back into Harrison Van Buren's life. No, Van Buren comes looking for him. He's realized that the guy is a famous architect from Hungary and he wants to use him. He has a vision to build a community center / church / a lot of other things. A giant commission, the kind of commission that you dream of. This doesn't happen by Laszlo. It happens to Laszlo. So Laszlo isn't driving the story. The same thing is true. All Laszlo wants in the world is to be reunited with his wife and to finish this construction. It's all he wants. And it's not by Laszlo that the wife is brought back, that Erzsébet and Sophia, his niece, are brought to America. It's to him. He now has a powerful benefactor. That powerful benefactor knows powerful people. And yes, it takes them a few years, but they are able to make something happen for him that's not happening for most people. He's reunited with his wife. He's reunited with his niece. This doesn't happen by him. This happens to him, right? So this is all very, very non-traditional structure. And I could go on, but I'm not going to because I don't want to give away too many spoilers of where we're going. Why is this happening? It's happening for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, again, as we talked about, what's the why of this piece? What's the why today? What's the theme of this piece? The Brutalist is not about back then. The Brutalist is about today. The Brutalist is about understanding, what does the immigrant experience look like? What does the trauma of separation look like? We are not telling, even though this character is uniquely gifted, Brady Corbet is not telling the story of a person who has the power to shape his own destiny. Brady Corbet is telling the story of a guy of unique talent. And even for him, he has to get lucky. He has to get lucky. He has to stumble into a benefactor, a guy who wants him, in order to pursue his dream, right? He doesn't have the power in this society to control his own destiny, to stand up for his own truth. He is dependent upon the will, the goodwill, and the help of others, because he has lost not only all of his money, but all of his status and respect in leaving his home. It's all been taken from him. So these decisions are not traditional decisions, right? And a crappy writing teacher might have said to Brady Corbet, hey, you got to get this guy more active. But smartly, Brady Corbet is not serving the rules of screenwriting. He's serving the rules of this story and this character. Now, in order to do that, he has to make some really strong choices. Now, always our characters need to be driven by really strong wants. But Brady Corbet makes a fascinating choice in The Brutalist, which is that Adrian Brody's character's want is under the surface. It's not until the epilogue that we're going to find out why this particular church/community center really matters, what he's really building, and why he is willing to sacrifice everything for it. Time with the wife that he loves so much. He's willing to put his own money, all of his fee, back into the building in order to make sure the ceilings are the right height. He makes a choice to dig down to create a secret area in the building that puts him at odds and into a huge conflict with not only the crappy American architect that his benefactor, Van Buren, has hired to keep an eye on him and his expenses, but also put him in direct conflict with Van Buren himself, right? He's making these big choices, but we don't actually know why, except we think, I guess, it must be about, he must care so much about the artistic vision. And it's not till the very end that we're actually going to understand why. Which really also very interesting. So the whole first movement of this piece, which is quite long, is all about just getting to this point where, without any drive by himself, even Van Buren basically asks him why he didn't fight for himself. All that movement is just to get into the place where he gets the gift that any immigrant would wish for. Finally, a chance at the land of opportunity. And of course, like I said, this piece is about now, not then. So in order to get that opportunity, even though this is a departure from the historical source material, he is dependent on a millionaire, probably a billionaire by today's standards, right? He's dependent upon this wealthy landed class. And he cannot stand up to him. And throughout the rest of the movie, Van Buren will play increasingly disturbing status games. From the very beginning, this is another thing that apparently architects don't get this, because one of the criticisms I read about The Brutalist was that in their first conversation, it's very hard to believe when Van Buren says, I find our conversations intellectually stimulating. No, that's the point. He doesn't actually understand anything about Laszlo. He sees this man as an opportunity to raise his own status. He's not actually connecting intellectually with this man, but he has power over him, right? And he gets to define the terms of the relationship. As Harry, his son, will later say, he's not embracing him, we're tolerating you, right? All the power is in the hands of this extraordinarily wealthy man. And throughout the film, We're going to watch Laszlo, Adrian Brody's character, we're going to watch his fate determined by the whims of a man for whom choosing to build this or not build this is, as Erzsébet, Laszlo's wife, says, like redoing a kitchen. The biggest opportunity of his life to this man is nothing, and it can be given and it can be taken away with such ease. And as the piece continues, I'm not going to give away the spoiler yet, but that relationship is going to become even more complicated, even more horrific. And we are waiting. We are waiting for the whole movie to watch him finally stand up for himself, to finally find his voice. And now there are going to be some spoilers. And he never does. At least not until we get to the epilogue. Yes, he is able to lash out at the people below him. He is able to fight with the crappy architect. He is able to fight with the operations manager. But he is never able to stand up to the person who's actually the source of both his life, his hope, and his oppression. He's never able to stand up to Van Buren. He's never able, even when it seems like Sophia, his niece, is in danger from the young Harry, he's not able to stand up for her. He doesn't have any power. He doesn't have any power over his own trajectory. He's 100% dependent on being given something that he, in his prior lifetime, had the ability to earn. In fact, the culmination of the movie, so during a trip, this is the big spoiler, during a trip to scout marble for the building with Van Buren, a woman attempts to seduce him at a party. We don't know if he's not able to pursue that further because of his inability to have sex with any woman, or because he doesn't want to cheat on his wife, but he escapes into the alley where he gets high on heroin. And he is discovered by his employer, his benefactor, Van Buren. And Van Buren rapes him. And even then, he is not able to stand up to this man. He is not able to find his voice. In fact, the culmination, the end of the second movement of this script, right? The script is 2 movements and an epilogue divided by an intermission. The end of the second movement is not him finding his voice. The end of the second movement is Erzsébet, his wife, finally expressing his voice, hobbling herself. She's been crippled by osteoporosis. She's finally gotten herself out of a wheelchair. She is literally in a walker, even though she's a young woman. She walkers herself into the mansion, and she confronts Van Buren for being a rapist, for raping her husband in front of his family and his friends. And she's violently assaulted, literally dragged out of the place. And we have the feeling of Laszlo's voice finally being acknowledged, but even then it's not him that's able to do it. It's her who does it on his behalf. Right? This is not by accident. Dramatically, the dramatic question of the piece is this relationship, right? And that is where all the traditional structure is built. Erzsébet comes back. He cannot make love to her. She loves him more than anyone in the world, and she is fighting to find the man that she used to know before the Holocaust. She is fighting to get down into his foundation and discover what's really there, and she is willing to fight for him forever. And they have a beautiful love that is also so complicated because he loves her, but he is afraid of hurting her because of the osteoporosis, and for that reason is afraid to make love to her. Or maybe it's something even worse. Maybe it is still this trauma that makes him unable to make love to anyone. finally, that's going to culminate, another little spoiler ahead. It culminates when he cannot find her pills. She's in terrible pain and she's out of pills. And so he actually makes himself vulnerable by sharing the heroin with her that he's been secretly using through all of this. And for one moment, both of them are free of their pain. And both of them are able to actually make love in this really complicated scene. So what's the real structure here, right? It is not about architecture. It is not about a man learning to stand up for himself. And it is not a traditional love story. It is a story about a man and a woman who have been through such horrific trauma that despite the beauty of their love, their massive intelligence, right? She is also one of the most brilliant people in the world, right? Their massive intelligence, who are both struggling under the thumb of a billionaire class, or a millionaire class in this case, right? They are both dependent on others despite all of their gifts. And they are both carrying so much trauma that they can only make love in a moment where they are both completely numbed by heroin, right? It's a very complicated love story, right? And it's that love story that actually pulls us through the movie. It's that desire and that pressure that actually pulls us through the movie because we don't actually know his real intentions. Why? Because this movie is not about immigrants need to find their voice. This is a movie about we need to find a voice for them, right? We have a main character who is not capable of expressing his voice in anything except his art. It takes another character having the courage to risk everything, to risk herself, to actually stand up for this person that she cares about, right? This is the movement that Brady Corbet is trying to get you, the audience, to take. He is trying to get you to express the voice of the voiceless. He is trying to get you to see the immigrant experience through a lens of empathy rather than through a lens of prejudice. This is not a story about then. This is a story about now. There's one other really beautiful piece of this that I want to connect to you. So even though we don't know the want, we can feel the want. Right? And this is so important. Even though we have a character whose wife is going to ultimately be the person who's able to express his voice, we need to feel the want of the character. And the way that we can do that when we're not using a traditional structure like this is we need to create pressure. So there are a couple of different ways that Brady Corbet creates pressure in The Brutalist. On the simplest level, Brady Corbet creates pressure between the talent of this man and the world that he is in. We see it first when he designs the tubular furniture and puts it in the window of his cousin. And we can see his cousin doesn't get it. And we can see that, my God, I don't think this community is going to get it. But we can see that he gets it. We see it again when given a commission to build some bookshelves. He builds the most beautiful library anybody has ever seen. We can see it again when everything goes wrong. The skylight gets accidentally destroyed. Van Buren shows up too early. They're not even done. He's not expecting the surprise. He's angry. We can see it in his lack of defense for himself, right? We can see it in the odd choice. We know he hasn't made a pass at Attila's wife. So we can see it in the odd choice to not defend himself. We can see it in the resistance to having sex with the sex worker after all this time in a concentration camp and on a boat and separated from his family. We could see it in the odd choice, and then in the odd choice to not be able to have sex with his wife. We're watching the structure not based on what the character chooses to do, but what the character refuses to do. We're able to track the structure of the piece through the character's resistance. So, despite all this, the character is actually being driven by a through line, right? And our biggest clue to that is when he offers to put his own money into the church. And this tells us a story. It tells us a story we're not expecting, right? Which is money doesn't matter to him. There's something else that matters more. Why is it that just the height of the ceilings is worth his entire fee for a place that he's building for somebody else? Is it his artistry? And then even stranger, he gets confronted by it by Harry. And he says, my wife is going to support me. And when he tells Elizabeth, and he shows her the plans, she agrees, right? So we're watching, even though we're not having the traditional structure of a character fighting for his journey, we're really built around this one moment where he makes this weird choice. And that choice brings us up our questions and gets our eyes on the right question. Why is he for this? Why does he need this? Is it about artistic integrity? Well, it is in a way, but not the way we think. Why does she support it? Why does she not go, dude, we need the money to survive? She says, no, we'll survive on my salary, right? Is that because she unilaterally supports her husband's artistry, or is there something she sees that's different than what we're seeing? The film feels like it ends at the end of the second movement when he finally finds his voice through her, when she confronts his oppressor and benefactor who happen to be the same person. But the result of that is to get her brutalized and him fired. It's not until we get to the epilogue that we realize that throughout this whole story, this character actually has been pursuing an active want. It's just an active want that's been hidden from us. If you listen to my first podcast on The Brutalist, you know that a lot of architects really attacked the architecture idea of this piece. And the biggest thing that they attacked was actually the ending, which is where all the meaning is. Because what we end up finding out is that the church/community center he's building, to him, is not a church or community center. It's actually a way of processing the concentration camps. That it is built as if it were a concentration camp, where the sky, at the top of those high ceilings shining through the skylight, is the only source of hope. It's this that Elizabeth sees when she looks at his blueprint. It's this that makes her say yes. It's this that makes her choose, and him choose at every moment, to deal with whatever Van Buren is dishing out. It's this that makes him rage when the project is taken from him on a whim of Van Buren. And it's this that makes him go back when Van Buren gives him the chance, right? That even though it seems like the movie's not happening by him, it actually is. It's just that his want is hidden. It's not until we get to the end that we realize he didn't make something for Van Buren at all. He made something for himself. A way of processing through his art what he cannot process in his words or in his actions. And this is what I'd like to leave you with, because this is your job as an artist. On the structural level, whether the audience knows what the piece is about or not, whether the audience knows what your character really wants or not, you need to know. You need to know how they're driving their own story, even if it seems like they're disempowered and driven, and their entire story is driven by somebody else. But more importantly, you need to know the why of your story, even if you never share it with anybody else. You need to know the why today, the what's the theme, the what am I trying to say, and what is that sky that I'm trying to direct my audience to, so that you know what choices to make. Every screenplay is a compromise. Just like the building of the Cathedral Community Center in The Brutalist is a compromise. But there are certain things that we cannot compromise. Sometimes we can compromise the fee. Sometimes we can compromise our pride. Sometimes we can compromise the rules. Sometimes we can compromise the historical perfection, but we cannot compromise the meaning. Because the meaning is why we make the art in the first place. So I hope that you have enjoyed this podcast. If you are and you're getting a lot out of it, I ask that you please, wherever you listen to your podcast, that you rate us, that you give us a 5-star review, that you tell your friends, that you help us spread the word. And if you'd like to learn more about this kind of screenwriting, please come study with us. We do a free class every Thursday night. We have our ProTrack mentorship program and so many wonderful opportunities for you to get involved from anywhere in the world with one of the strongest communities in screenwriting at Jacob Kruger Studio. And I'll see you next episode.